We are live for UFC 308. As always, I'm your host, Mike, and today I'm joined by Uncle Wheezy. It's been a while since I had a guest, and I figured what better card than to bring guests back. Wheezy, how are you doing, man? How are you feeling about this card?
I love it, man. 14 or 13 fights now, but we might still have 14 if they can find a replacement for Said Nurmagomedov, his opponent. So I like this card. This is a high-level card. Last week, I was really kind of creeped out by that card. I had barely any strong reads. And in my opinion, a lot of those fights were just so greasy that it would have been irresponsible to even gamble on them. This card's the opposite. We've got big sample sizes for a lot of fighters. We have some interesting debutantes here. This is a fun card. Some great matchmaking on this card I'll talk about. And yeah, there's some spots that are definitely sticking out after doing the analysis. So I'm looking forward to breaking it down with you because I've already got one big bet and I've got about 4 or 5 bets that I've kind of got fired up in the chamber right now and ready to fire. So we'll see how it all shakes out.
Let's go. Yeah, I already have a couple bets myself. Nothing big yet. Biggest bet is, I think, is a 2-unit bet. We'll talk about it once we get there. But I got to be careful this week, Wheezy, because I really love Max and I really love Whitaker. They're my 2 favorite fighters, and they're fighting back-to-back. I mean, you can see Max right here. That's him beating the piss out of Calvin Kattar. And, yeah, I'm very biased to them, so I got to be careful. But there are some good spots, mostly staying away from those 2. There's other good spots, and I'm really looking forward to this card. It should be a really fun one. Let's
nice, man. And let me just say, my favorite fighter is Anthony Hernandez. And I had to sit there and be very, very deliberate last week. I was like, you know what? I'm not just firing right away. I'm going to do all the analysis. I'm going to listen to some other people have to say, and maybe I'll get to a bet. And I got to a 2-unit bet on him, so I won like 1.5 units on him. And you know, the thing was I was like, you know, if Hernandez wins this fight and I don't have money on him, I've been waiting to fade Michel Pereira against a real grappler for 8 fucking fights. And I finally was like, at the end of the week, I was like, dude, I'm not passing on this opportunity. I'm definitely betting him. So I'll see what kind of reality I can bring to the situation for you for those fights.
Yeah.
So hopefully you don't let your fandom put a bet out there that your gambler's side would be angry with.
Hell yeah. I had the same issue as you, except I didn't pull the trigger. I too am a Fluffy fan. I know we're both fans of the high-paced wrestlers. I know you like JSP as well.
Yes.
Unfortunately, JSP has been disappointing us lately.
3 in a row. Yeah.
He'll
get right. He'll get right.
If they don't cut him, I hope they don't.
No. He's too exciting, dude. Even the fights that he's losing have been fun fights. So, yeah, I think 3 losses in a row against 3 really tough stylistic opponents. They should feed him somebody that's going to break, you know, because let him get a win back, man. He's a good fighter. He's still got a winning record.
For sure, man. I agree 100%. And yeah, I'm glad Fluffy pulled it off at least, and he pulled it off for you. That was good. And who knows where they put him next? Like he's maybe what, 2-3 fights away from a title shot?
Yeah, I think so at this point. And I think it might even be a quicker path than that because there's going to be a lot of people who are just not going to pick up the phone.
Yeah.
When they know that he's looking. There's so many fighters. Like, can you imagine what he would do to Israel Adesanya?
Cook him. He'd cook him.
I mean, it would not even be close. That would be the biggest bet of the year for me at pretty much anything below -300. He would kick the shit out of Israel Adesanya, you know, because they've protected Adesanya, you know, against grapplers as well. So, yeah, there's a lot of people that are just not going to, you know, agree to fight that dude.
Yeah. Unfortunately for him, Dricus, I feel like that's an interesting matchup because he's just so weird. Like on paper, it should be Fluffy all day, but Dricus is the weirdest person.
So weird. Yeah, dude. There's a lot of guys that I think would give Fluffy big problems in that top 10, you know? But also, there's a lot of guys where I would like, oh, dude, there's no way Israel Adesanya would ever fight Anthony Hernandez. He'd retire before he fought that dude. So, there's some good matchups. There's some really interesting, like Dogfather just mentioned, Roman Dolidze would be a really interesting matchup. Not a great matchup, honestly, because that guy is such an aggressive grappler, such a dangerous and opportunistic submission grappler, and he's got so much power on the feet. I think that could be a really tough matchup for him. But if he doesn't get it early, if you don't get it early against Fluffy, dude, he's just gonna break you in half. He doesn't get tired.
Yes, sir. Honestly, now that we're talking about it, the second I get off the show, I'm going to go on DraftKings and see what Fluffy Champ 2025 futures look like. Because
I like it. I like it, man. It could happen if he gets the right next couple of matchups,
Yeah. Sean over here bringing up a good point with the rankings. They lifted him one spot.
Yeah.
I mean, Moicano beat the guy that they've been pushing for a title shot for like a year now, and they didn't even move him up a single spot.
Yeah, no, it's pretty crazy, because there are so many people above him that would never agree to fight him. And show me a more fucking dominant performance than what Fluffy just did. I mean, all these middleweight fights, they go to fucking decision lately. A lot of guys, go out there outpointing people. Fluffy goes out there and scores 192 DraftKings points. That was a performance for the ages. That was a terrifying fucking performance. And you move him up one spot in the rankings. Paulo Costa would shit himself if they called him up and told him, hey, we want you to fight Fluffy Hernandez. Costa's above him in the rankings. What would Hernandez be against Costa? Minus 400?
Probably.
And he'd cover it. So come on. Paulo Costa should not be above him in the rankings.
Yeah, I agree. Dogfather over here flexing his units. I'm going to start setting lines on over-unders of Dogs talking about how he can't get enough money down on lines. But
hey, dude, he's got his big nuts and he puts them in the wheelbarrow and the unit size it matches, so a lot of those people, they're scared. They don't want to take his bets, man.
For real. But all right, let's catch up with the chat real quick, and then we got 13 fights to break down. First up, we got Daz. As always, thank you for tuning in, my brother. Seems like he's at 2 a.m. right now, his time. So really appreciate you tuning in, Daz. Dogfather, 1 week of not co-hosting a show with me, and he's already hating on the podcast. Evan, Julieta Martinez not getting a contract was a straight-up robbery. I felt she deserved the robbery, but I think Dana did do her right by not signing her.
She's only 20. She will 20 definitely be there.
Yeah, her skills are next level. She's going to be in the UFC. I don't think that's a question. But I think he did her right. Like, I think he learned his lesson with Chase Hooper.
Yeah. Hooper's a killer right now too, man. I'm really high on Chase Hooper. Really fucking high on Chase Hooper.
And I remember when I was fading him with Pete Barnett and winning that bet too till he got the
dude. I had Slippery Pete there too. Bring back Slippery fucking Pete. What are we waiting for? I mean, like, it's time, dude. You got to bring back Slippery Pete. Guy's always in awesome fights.
Hell yeah. And then let's see what else we got here. Geoff saying, don't bring your girl around Roman. Indeed. Champ, Fluffy's a monster. Yeah, like Weezy said, it's unlikely a lot of people will take fights with him, but hopefully he can get them. But all right, let's dive in. First fight of the night, we've got Bruno Silva versus Ismail Naurdiev. Silva is 23-11-0, 35 years old, 6 feet tall with a 74-inch reach. Naurdiev, 23-7-0. 28, so he's going to be 7 years younger. He's going to be the same height and have the same reach. Why don't you start us off, Weezy? What you got here?
Yeah, so right now, I want to say this now before we go through all these fights. I am really changing the way that I handicap fights to account for this glove switch. And until I see a change in this trend, and this trend is indicating an amount of finishes by KO that's about 2 standard deviations outside the mean. And for anybody that's ever studied math, it doesn't need to be that big percentage-wise different than what the large sample size is in order to start alarming people who look at statistics for guides as to our trends starting to change. Are we seeing a change in the way things operate on the macro level in the UFC? And these pillow fist gloves that are curving the hand, I think that there's a couple of different things going on with them. One, the padding might be causing less damage. And two, the fighters just might need to get used to it before they actually start finding power again. But it's a different glove. It's handling their hands differently. And until I start to see knockouts start happening again at a higher level, or at least at the going back to the mean, regressing back to the mean, I'm going to be looking at guys like Bruno Silva and saying, I don't know how I bet you. Because if I think that you're a finish or bust type of fighter in 2024 in the UFC with these new gloves, I'm going to go with the guy that I think can win minutes. And because of that, I'm picking Ismail Naurdiev to win this fight by decision. And it's because I first of all, Silva's lost 5 of his last 6 fights. The guy's cold as ice right now. And he's not a great minute winner. While Naurdiev, we know that this dude can wrestle. We know that he's fast. We know that he mixes up his punches and his kicks pretty well, but he's chinny. He's lost 3 of his last 6 fights on the regional scene against Al-Salawi, against this kid that fought on Dana White's Contender Series and lost. I forget the guy that he lost to right now, but pretty good guy, 17-2, a Belarusian guy.
Kutsi.
Yes, that's right, Kutsi. And then the other guy, the Polish dude, veteran, got him with an armbar in round 1, far side armbar. And so, I'm not high on either one of these guys right now, but Naurdiev is 7 years younger. He's faster. I think he's the better minute winner at distance striking range, and I think he's going to be the guy more likely to win minutes with his wrestling and grappling as well. And while I would, if it were 2023, I'd be like, Bruno Silva's live for a KO here, but till KOs start happening again, I'm going to go with minute winners. I'm going to go with the guys that have the better cardio, the better well-rounded skill set, the ability to be able to weather an early storm and come out the other end and win the 15-minute battle. So I'm going with Naurdiev here.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I went into this fight pre-tape kind of thinking who can forget the Bruno Silva Weidman fight? That was a terrible, terrible look.
Yeah.
Weidman didn't even out-wrestle him. He just outstruck him, which is a problem. So that was on my mind. I was thinking to myself, all right, it's probably Naurdiev or pass. And I started to tape it. And, Naurdiev's a cleaner striker. He like you said, he's probably a better minute winner because Silva looks to counter a bit too much. But maybe I can't really place it, but something in me is telling me Silva's going to knock this guy out. Maybe there's a concern with the gloves, like you said, but I'm just watching it. First of all, Naurdiev's pretty chinny. He's been knocked out twice, but he's been hurt multiple times.
Yes.
Marcin Bandel hurt him before subbing him. That was on the regionals. And, he went to the regionals, and you would think he'd be picking up a bunch of wins, but he was beating bums. And then the second they gave him a decent fighter, Jar Al-Salawi, Bandel, they beat him. He lost both, and got finished both of those times. So those were concerning. And I'm watching him. Takedown defense is phenomenal. Not that it's going to matter here against Silva. Silva does grapple occasionally. I don't think he's going to go to it here. If he does, I doubt he gets it because, like I said, I do like Naurdiev's takedown defense a lot. But I also like Silva's takedown defense a lot. I kind of remembered it being bad for some reason. And then once I was taping, I was like, nah, this dude can defend a takedown. And he pops back up pretty quickly, too. So I don't really think we're going to be on the ground much. And then, like I said, Naurdiev's probably a little cleaner. He's going to throw a bit more, bit of a better minute winner. But Silva just hits harder. The counters are on point. And Naurdiev's defense isn't great at all. He can be a little bit flat-footed when he's entering. And I can't help but think Silva's going to KO him at some point. So I'm going to wait. I see a lot of hype on Naurdiev. I'm assuming a lot of people are just fading Silva after the Weidman performance. Maybe I'll get a really nice number and then I'll hop in. Or maybe I'll pass. Either way, I'll be okay. But I think I'm picking Silva, mostly going with my gut there.
Yeah, Silva's got a big strength to schedule advantage here. And I think people are, they want to be like, oh, if you're losing to Weidman, you fucking suck and all this stuff. Look, Weidman's a former champion. He beat Anderson Silva twice. Anderson Silva was the most unbeatable guy in the sport. Weidman would beat Naurdiev. You know what I'm saying? Like people are thinking like because you lost to a bad veteran who's still only what 30, 40 years old, So what? Naurdiev is out there losing to Al Salawi. He's out there getting subbed by Bandel, and he got hurt by Bandel on the feet. So if Bandel's hurting you on the feet, wouldn't Weidman do the same fucking thing?
Yeah.
The guy's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt who's an all-American Division I wrestler. Like this, I think that there's a big strength to schedule advantage here on the Silva side, but I'm also, Silva's getting old, he's getting slow, and the power, I can't rely on power right now. I'm not seeing guys get knocked out. It's weird.
Yeah, definitely makes a lot of sense. And it's so strange because I think they made the gloves lighter, right? So you would think because they're lighter, they would hit harder. And I can't even imagine what they possibly could have done to them to actually make them hit lighter, but numbers don't lie.
Yeah, the numbers are alarming. So it's going to be something I'm going to be keeping a very close eye on every week is how many KOs happen. And are they happening from the gloves or are they happening from elbows and knees and kicks or ground and pound where the ref steps in? I want to see how many people are getting flat out dropped with a straight right hand, with a left hook. That's going to be something I'm going to be watching for a lot. And if I still continue not to see it, I'm going to be looking to bet decision props. I'm going to be looking to bet overs, and I'm going to be looking to fade guys that are moment winners on the feet.
Yeah, I'd be curious what those numbers would look like too if you filtered out like attritional knockouts that happen because of a lot of strikes. Like if you just left it at a big strike that knocked someone out, what would that number be like? That would be interesting.
Yep, absolutely, dude. Those trends matter.
I did want to pull this up, Evan. I don't know if it's a great parlay piece to parlay minus 190 over 1.5. What do you think, Wheezy? At least my personal opinion. I know Wheezy's saying the stuff with the gloves, but like putting that aside for a sec, Naurdiev does get hurt. Bandel hurt him very quickly and got him out of there. And Silva does hit hard, so I'd be very careful.
Over 1.5 at minus 190. I'll just tell you what my betting model says it is. It says it's a slightly plus EV bet because Naurdiev has went over 1.5 rounds all 4 times in his UFC fights before before he got cut. And for Bruno Silva, it's 5 of 9. And Bruno Silva is a very durable guy. But Naurdiev is going to be live to get a sub because Bruno Silva loves getting subbed. And Naurdiev is a guy who's historically chinny. So I feel like both guys actually have a path to victory here to finish inside the distance. So it probably wouldn't be something I'd be parlaying, but my data kind of likes that at minus 190.
Okay, there you go. At least the model likes it. We can move on, though. Next up, we've got Ibo Aslan versus Raffael Cerqueira. Aslan is 13-1-0, 28 years old, 6'3" with a 77-inch reach. Cerqueira 11-0, undefeated. He's 34, so he's 6 years older. Going to be 1 inch taller. Don't have his reach. I'll start us off here. I mean, I went into this fight not really knowing what to expect. I know that Cerqueira was supposed to be on the Contender Series. He was supposed to fight Mazio, the absolute bum. And obviously, I think he would have won that fight. But now they're putting up against Ibo. And look, I personally can't bet it just because I don't have enough information. There's like 5 minutes of tape on Cerqueira, and then maybe a little bit more if you go on Instagram and dig a little bit. There's a few clips that I was able to find. But you got really little tape. You have no idea what he looks like extended. He almost never goes past the first round. So I'm not really sure what people are betting. I'm thinking maybe they're thinking like, okay, Ibo's been subbed. I see a picture of Cerqueira and Jonathan Almeida training together. He's got 2 subs. Maybe they think he has a grappling edge. And maybe he does. But I can't assume things. From what I've seen from the tape, he's a solid striker with a lot of power. It's kind of very stiff, though. It doesn't really move much. And I saw one clip of him grappling on his Instagram against an 0-1 guy, and he took him down immediately and subbed him immediately, which is great, and it looked good, but it doesn't tell me much because the competition was awful. And then with Ibo, you have a guy who people were crapping on his cardio for leading up to that fight with Turkali, that rematch. And my guy comes out, defends almost every single takedown, and then gets a round 3 finish of his own. So you have a guy here making his debut that you're making a lot of guesses about, and you have almost no tape on him, and who's barely ever left the first, against a guy who's made his UFC debut, been under the lights, got a knockout in the 3rd round, looked good doing it, defended all the takedowns, cardio seemed to hold up for a big physical guy like that. The striking is good. So I have to lean Ebo. If the line gets too crazy and he becomes like a plus 150 underdog or something, I'm just coming up with numbers off the top of my head, then I'd probably be interested. For now, I'm going to pass, but he's going to be the pick. Just too little information to work with. How about you, Weezy?
Yeah, I think you summed it up absolutely perfectly. The pick has to be Aslan because we've actually seen him fight another human being in a cage and best that human being. We even saw it at the UFC level once. We saw it on Dana White's Contender Series once. We didn't have to watch some cell phone footage, where like a girl's head is in the way of him submitting some obese busboy who should be fighting at featherweight instead of 205. There's literally no information on the guy. Here's what I saw, right? We have one round to him, and he finishes the fight. It was the Ivan Nilsson fight, Ivan Nilsson Diaz Santos. Spinning elbow knockout, absolutely picture perfect, highlight reel, beautiful stuff. Everything before that looks like absolute trash. I didn't see him throw one counter. Every time this guy swung at him, he just shelled up. And then there's no footage on him. So I think it's very irresponsible to gamble on this fight. He reminds me a lot of Jailton Almeida coming into the UFC when you had the fight against Nasruddinov, but before that, he had fights against Ildemar Alcantara and another UFC washout, but he had like 18 professional fights and there was no tape on any of them. And then he comes into the UFC and he beats some Dagestani Russian, out wrestles him. And then people are like, oh man. So yeah, I think it would be really irresponsible to grapple on this fight because we literally have no idea who the hell Raffael Cerqueira is.
Yep, I agree. Evan over here saying the unknown Brazilians are boomer bust.
Variants.
Yeah, they are. I mean, if you can find one training at Fight Nerds low key and they're the underdog, then you got yourself a play. But other than that, I feel like they've been a little bust.
Yeah, man. Just stay away from this one.
Dog over here, Ebo beat play. Dog, you're the weirdest person ever. Dog hits me up this morning, says, I'm betting Cerqueira. 30 minutes later, he goes, never mind. I might bet Ebo. Now he's coming in here to give us sass on this.
Dude, he sounds like me, man. I'll be DMing with Brady, and I'll have watched one half of the tape. I'll watch the tape on Fighter A and be like, oh, I'm betting Fighter A. And then I watch one fight on Fighter B. I'm like, oh, wait, no. Oh, God, no, I'm not betting on Fighter A,
Literally 30 minutes apart. But, yeah, dog, who has Cerqueira beat? I mean, Pleasure Man's probably beating Cerqueira's entire record, too, so.
Yeah, he is. I think I'm over 500 against these fuckers that Cerqueira's beaten. I'm gonna choke him out with my judo orange belt.
But all right, we can move on to a more competitive fight. This is honestly a really cool fight. We have Rinat Fakhretdinov versus Carlos Leal. Fakhretdinov 23-2-133. He's 6 feet tall with a 74-inch reach. Leal 21-5-0. He's in 30, so he's 3 years younger, 1 inch shorter, and he's got a 2-inch reach disadvantage. Why don't you start us off, Weezy?
I'll just read the summary that I wrote out in my fight write-up for this one because I thought this was a really fascinating fight, right? Because I was expecting to just be like, oh, max bet Rinat, but then I watched the tape on Leal. So here's what I wrote. This is a very interesting short notice replacement opponent for Rinat. He was supposed to fight the 6'5" Nursultan Rozaboyev, a low-volume counter striker who never goes first, and now he's facing a pressure fighter who switches stances and has serious power in both hands in Carlos Leal. Leal's grappling game is a bit of a mystery. He's 2 wins and 1 loss to the submission as a pro, and most of the available tape doesn't show much in the way of defensive grappling. Rinat is a known quantity at this point. He's a powerful wrestle boxer who pressures, fights at a high pace, and has the proven ability to win minutes and moments with his wrestling and top control. Carlos is going to meet Rinat in the middle and make this fight a car crash. Carlos deserves to be here. He has an impressive regional scene resume, and he's beaten former UFC fighters and top-notch regional scene competition, and he's won 15 of his last 17 fights with the only losses being razor close decisions against Sadabusi. I have to favor Rinat here. He's taller, longer, has more UFC experience, and he's beaten the better names, and we know he should have a sizable grappling advantage in this matchup. I see the fight being close at distance striking range, but if Rinat mixes in his wrestling like we know he should, he can make Carlos fight at a pace he will probably be very uncomfortable with. I think Rinat wins a decision here by fighting at a higher pace, mixing in the wrestling to win minutes, as well as landing the bigger shots at distance striking range. Both guys are durable and well-tested, so I see this one going the full 15, and the striking exchanges of this fight, as well as who wins the pressure battle on the feet, will be fascinating to watch. So the pick is Rinat Fakhretdinov by decision.
There you go. Yeah, for me, I mean, I was very familiar with Leal because of the PFL. I watch a lot of PFL. I break it down, like to bet on it. And the dude is really good. The dude is real good. I was really hyped when they signed him because he's not like this super flashy fighter that you would expect the UFC to randomly pick up like they do sometimes. He's a very, you know, put together kind of guy. He's not coming out there for a one-punch knockout, but he's got some really nice performances and he's got a lot of skill. So I was hyped that they signed him. My immediate gut reaction pre-tape was still like, okay, Rinat is sizable favorite, probably makes sense. I knew a few people who were on Leal as a big dog, and I was like, I don't know. And then I taped it, and I think anybody who got Leal, because he opened at like plus 385, anyone who played that and was able to get down enough money like that, that's a great bet.
Yeah.
Even Leal plus 275-ish is probably a great bet. I still lean Rinat. There was a point where the line came down to him being minus 160. And I was like, maybe I should get involved. But I wanted to tape it first. And then by the time I taped it, it was too late. But yeah, so I think Rinat wins, but it's tricky because his striking is kind of doo-doo. I like had this picture in my head that Rinat was like a serviceable striker, but he's fine. He's fine. The power's an equalizer. He does hit really hard, but the striking itself is pretty sloppy. He does the Trevor Peak standing hammer fists, which is not the best look ever. He's relatively hittable. There are still cardio concerns. He's a monster grappler, though. Really good wrestling. Control is okay. Not the best control. You see him getting, 5, 6, 7, 8 takedowns. That's because he can't hold these people down. So that's not the best thing. And then with Leal, I think he's a much cleaner striker. I think that on the feet, if he can keep it there, he will outstrike Rinat. He won't hit as hard. I think Renat's more live for like a knockout, at least early. But Leal will be the cleaner striker, the more effective striker, in my opinion. And his takedown defense, that's where it gets a little tricky because just looking at the takedown defense itself, it looks really good. He has really good hand control. He goes right for the hands. Immediately, you see him working with the hips. Good underhooks. He's sprawling well. And the get-ups are really good too, but he's never, ever fought a wrestler like Rinat. Never. No one in his career. So that's where it's kind of tricky to kind of figure out, like, okay, is he going to get taken down? And I do think he will get taken down. And then the question is, what's he look like off his back? Because we don't really have much tape on that either. So I don't really know. So there's a bit too many questions for me to want to back Leal. At the same time, I'm not super hype about backing Rinat at chalk. So I'm probably going to pass unless the line caves in again. But I will pick Rinat to win.
Yeah, when I saw Rinat at minus 160, I thought I should get involved right now. I missed it, and now it's gone, and I have no problem letting it just go at this price because I'm pretty impressed with what I saw from Leal. But for me, the grappling game is an unknown. I saw him beautifully defend one takedown against Sadabusi. He scrambled fantastically and really just stuffed the takedown with a sprawl and good hips and good feet. So I was like, okay, that looked good. But Sadabusi is not a wrestler, so it's like I just don't know. And I never got to watch the Ray Cooper fight. I got to watch he beat Ray Cooper, so this guy, he deserves to be here. Like I said in my write-up, I think and I think both of these guys, while it's at distance striking range, have a chance to land big shots. They're both have a ton of power.
Yeah, that Ray Cooper fight honestly won't tell you much. Ray Cooper just looked horrible.
Okay.
Career terrible. And
Understood.
Leal rightfully beat him, but he was a big dog in that fight. So anyone who cashed on Leal there, that was a great bet. But before we move on, let me catch up real quick. We got VB in the chat. What's up, VB? He's saying Leal is the side at this price. I can understand it.
Yeah.
Dogfather agreeing with him. And then my guy Tyler in the chat. It's all good, brother. As long as you pulled up. Make sure you guys are checking out Tyler too. One of the best in the game. And he does it with a whiteboard. Who else has a whiteboard? No one.
Badass.
But all right, next up, we've got Farid Basharat versus Victor Hugo. Basharat 12-0 undefeated. He's 27, 5'8" with a 71-inch reach. Hugo 25, 4-0, 31. He's 4 years younger, 1 inch shorter, and he'll have the same reach. I'll start us off here. I don't know what to make of this fight, really. I mean, Basharat makes a lot of sense as the favorite. He makes a lot of sense as a significant favorite. He's fought really good competition, honestly, already, even though he's 4 fights in. Blackshear and my guy Lapalus are significantly better than anybody who Victor Hugo has beaten. Those were really good wins. But like minus 600 just feels weird, especially in this kind of how it's been this year with big favorites. They've just been dropping the ball left and right. And Hugo's dangerous. You know, I mean, in terms of minute winning, it's clear Basharat will be the better minute winner, both on the feet and on the ground. I think he's the cleaner striker. Hugo a little bit flashier, a little bit more explosive, maybe hits a little bit harder. But Basharat definitely the one who I think over 15 minutes can put together a competent striking performance, whereas Hugo maybe not so much. Hugo really struggles with forward pressure, which I think could be a problem here with Basharat. We saw in his last fight, he was kind of playing defense the entire fight and couldn't really get his offense going. He won, but he wasn't overly impressive doing it. I think he could be competitive with Farid on the feet. I think maybe on the ground, he can pose a challenge in that Farid's going to have to be really careful because Hugo is dangerous. He's very slick with the grappling. I believe he's a black belt, and he loves his heel hooks, but that's also part of my issue. I hate him and his heel hooks. The dude will be on top of the guy. He'll literally be on top and then decide that it's a fantastic idea to go for a heel hook. Like, yeah, I can't back someone like that. So I won't waste too much time. I think Farid wins. I tend to think it'll be by decision, but I wouldn't be shocked if he got a later finish. Hugo does seem like he could slow down a little bit, especially if you kind of give him some adversity. We haven't really seen that in his career because he hasn't really faced any adversity. But just from what I'm seeing, that's the vibe I get. And yeah, I'll pick Basharat. I don't really see a way to bet it, though. How about you, Easy?
How about this? How about we bet it like this? How about we bet Farid Basharat to win by knockout? Because of exactly what you said, because of this dumb kid going out there looking for leg locks, he's going to get put in a bad spot and Farid's going to pound his head through the canvas. I think that's exactly how this fight ends. I think Hugo's going to make a mistake. Farid Basharat has changed camps from Extreme Couture, and now he's went down to American Top Team. American Top Team guys recently, I'm thinking of Renato Moicano, and I'm thinking of somebody else, Grant Dawson, who just absolutely put on, I mean, like in 2 fights in a row, we never used to see Moicano land ground and pound. Moicano only used to look to try to get to your back, and if you wouldn't give up the back, he would just ride out the round on top in mount. But now he's starting to land ground and pound. You saw what Grant Dawson just did to Rafa Garcia. If Farid's training with those guys and learning, about how to finish fights with ground and pound, I think that's one of the ways that we're going to be seeing finishes going forward. You're going to see just as many submissions as you ever did, because that's always going to be an option. But I think that the ground and pound knockouts are ways that you're going to see finishes. So I think with Hugo being an opportunistic submission grappler, I think with him also putting himself in some bad spots to look for those submissions, that we could see either one of these guys finish a fight. How about an under 2.5 rounds at plus 180? That's juicy. That's fat. That's like Aylin Perez's ass, like Norma Dumont's ass. That's what we want. Those juicy, rounded bets that when they cash, they make our pockets a little fatter. They make our wallets a little fatter. I think that this could be a sneaky fight to finish inside the distance.
I do like that under shout. I was looking at that as well, because then you're covered in a few scenarios, right? You're covered if I really like what you pointed out with the heel hooks thing, because that's a danger of going for the heel hook, right? You're open for ground and pound.
Yeah.
So I like that. That was sneaky. There's that. Basharat could get a sub late if Hugo gasses. And at the same time, this is UFC, this is MMA, and Hugo is a good submission grappler. Would it be that insane if he subbed Basharat off something, that he caught? No, it wouldn't be that crazy. We've seen crazier things. And maybe even on the feet, he is explosive. And Basharat's good defensively, but he could be caught just like anyone. So an under at plus one, fight ends is plus 155. Under 2.5 is plus 180, like you said. And Basharat KO is plus 800. So I think those are some decent ways to target the fight. Great shout there.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I just, I think that everyone's going to think Basharat by decision, but we know that this guy can finish fights. If somebody makes a mistake, like Clayton did, and I mean, like Hugo can make a mistake, but he could also find a finish of his own. So I think that's how I'm going to look at this one.
Yeah, I like it. I went into this year telling myself, because last year I kept passing on plus money unders that I felt like would hit, but I just didn't have the balls to do it. And then going into this year, I was like, okay, if you got a plus money under and you can name 2 or more ways it finishes, you're going to bet it.
Yeah.
And I can name a few ways. So I think this might end up getting my money.
Yeah, agreed.
But we can move on to
yes. Why are we talking about this now? This is the main event. They're going to make this fight the main event, and the fans are going to cheer, my friend.
We have 2 reasons right here why Jon Jones is about to retire. Kennedy Nzechukwu at heavyweight and Chris Barnett. No matter who wins this, Jon Jones is in trouble, and he knows it. But here we got Kennedy Nzechukwu versus Chris Barnett. Kennedy is 12-5-0, coming up to heavyweight, 32 years old, 6'5" with an 83-inch reach. On the other side, we got Barnett, 23-8-0. He's 38, so he's 6 years older, 5'9", so he's, hold on, I got to do math, 8 inches shorter, and he's going to be at an 8-inch reach disadvantage. Weezy, why don't you start us off?
So Kennedy and Nzechukwu just violently shit the bed as a minus 700 favorite against a 41-year-old Ovin St. Preux. And you bring them out against this big fat dynamo and you make them a minus 700 favorite again. Boy. I mean, I might just have to throw some money on Chris Barnett and just laugh my ass off if it cashes. I mean, like at this point, I mean, are we really putting minus 700 on Kennedy? Like there's no process to this guy's game at all. I don't even know if he knows what he's good at. Like he showed a great wrestling game in the Roberson fight. He showed phenomenal pressure in the Ulberg fight and the Kudalaba fight. He's always had great conditioning. He's always got ridiculous size and great just God-given gifts for his size, his length, the fact that he's a southpaw, the fact that he has really good conditioning for a big man and really good output. And when he's pressuring and puts you on your back foot, he can be a real problem, but he's a little bit chinny and that's not good, and he just doesn't seem to know, like it seemed like he was losing that St. Preux fight. And I was thinking to myself, like, okay, you're going to have to see him now in round 2, just really put the pressure on, and he never did that. He just stood in front of him, with the you go, I go, you go, I go. And then he loses a split decision. And it's like, dude, did you have a plan B? Did you have a plan C? Was there any kind of a plan here as to where you were better than this guy and how you were going to win minutes? Because I mean, he should absolutely destroy Fat Barnett, but Fat Barnett could bust out a spinning fat kick just like he did against Fat Vellante and destroyed him. I mean, like he beat Fat Vellante, he beat Fat Collier. This guy's 2-2 in the UFC, and they're giving you plus 500 in the heavyweight division against a guy like VP said. He's a jack of all trades and he's a master of none. And my dad used to call me the jackass of all trades. And I think that might be what Kennedy's better described as. But, Kennedy might be really good as a heavyweight too. We might find out that because I always said to myself, like, how does this dude make 205? But we never really had any situations where Kennedy looked like death on the scale. So maybe we just kind of, maybe like we didn't realize how hard this guy was working behind the scenes to make 206. And maybe he wasn't fighting at his highest potential as a result of that. And a guy like him at his size going up to heavyweight, he could potentially be a big problem up there if he can start to use that well-rounded skill set to target the weaknesses of his opponents. But like, he's got to get the fuck out of Fortis. He's got to. He's like, dude, Ryan Spann and him with a real coach should be fucking champion level fighters. They should be living at the gym. There should be somebody watching them, making sure that they. I mean, you wouldn't have to do that with Kennedy. You would have to do that with Spann, because Spann strikes me as extremely lazy, you know. But like, this guy might be a problem. He might be a problem up at this division. There's a lot of reasons why you could say that Kennedy could put together a run. He's still pretty young, and now that he's up at heavyweight and he's going to be fighting guys like Fat Barnett and Fat Collier, you know, he could clean out the division for a while. So it'll be interesting to see how he does here. But I mean, this is dog or pass at plus 500 for Barnett and minus 700 for Kennedy.
Yeah, I really don't know what you can do other than playing Barnett and just hoping for a meme. Like, maybe like Barnett round 2, round 3, I guess. But like, I don't really see Kennedy gassing, and Barnett isn't exactly a cardio monster himself.
That's for sure. Kennedy's never going to get tired. He can be knocked out, but he's not going to get tired.
Yeah, like I wouldn't put Chris Barnett in the same sentence as Anthony Hernandez, JSP. He's not exactly a pace monster. Yeah, it's really a waste of time to even break down the fight. I mean, maybe like, you know, it could be interesting, like maybe like a fight starts round 3 prop, because I feel like it might be significant plus money. And then guys like this, you know, low-level heavyweights, you get out of the first round, and then they tend to go to a decision, or at least to the next round, because they slow down. Especially Barnett will slow down. But it's risky because Nzechukwu could probably put him away at any point. If he targets the body, which is going to be open there, and we've seen him do, rock him with front kicks, rock him with knees, target the body, could probably get him out of there in a few minutes. Maybe the bookies will, like, because they're being really slow with the props.
Yeah.
Maybe they won't do their homework. Maybe we'll get like a good sub prop. That could be interesting, because we've seen Kennedy go D1 before. He could do it here.
Mm-hmm. And he's got those freakishly long arms, 83-inch reach. Guys like that can get submissions that other dudes just would. They would even in their dreams they would never lock up a Darce choke. You know, I remember there was a fight on Dana White's Contender Series where it was Greg Velasco, and he was such a short and fat heavyweight that he couldn't even lock in a body triangle. And I was like, you know, as somebody who's 6'2", I was like, oh my God, that's a heavyweight who can't lock in a fucking body triangle? You got to be kidding me, man. You know, so like guy like Barnett, you know, and Nzechukwu could just pull a Martin Budai, clinch up with this dude and just hold him against the cage.
Exactly the fight I was thinking of. That's exactly the one I was thinking about.
And that would be Kennedy showing a little bit of process in fight IQ if he did that, you know, because that's already been a path where somebody got an easy win against this guy. And, you know, Kennedy needs a win right now.
Who's the first guy Barnett fought in the UFC?
Well, he fought Fat Vellante. He fought Budai.
Was Vellante his debut? Ben Rothwell. That's who I was thinking.
Well, Rothwell choked him out with that 10-finger choke. Yeah.
Okay, that's the one. Because I knew he got subbed. I was trying to remember by who.
Yeah, I forgot it was Rothwell.
So that could be a spot, but we can move on.
Yeah.
Next up, we've got a bit more of a competitive fight. We've got Abus Magomedov versus Bruno Ferreira. Magomedov, 26-6-1, 34 years old, 6'2" with a 78-inch reach. Ferreira, 12-1-0. He's 31. He's 3 years younger. Going to be 4 inches shorter, and he is going to be at a 6-inch reach disadvantage. I'll start us off. I mean, Ferreira is a tough guy to get a proper read on. I don't think he's left the first round in a single UFC fight. Very explosive guy, very powerful guy. Striking is fine. I think he's relatively limited in the striking department at this division, though, because of his size. He's just too small. Don't really see much output from him either. A bit of a counter striker. And I will say his takedown defense and counter grappling does look very solid. Scrambles up really well, defends the takedowns really well. He's a relatively scary dude, but I have a lot of questions still. I think he's undersized. I think the cardio is going to be an issue. I don't know if he can put together a 15-minute competent striking performance. And with Magomedov, I know that he's been pretty disappointing for a lot of people, but I think the size is going to play a huge difference here. I think the front kicks are going to land all day long for him. And I think that'll be smart. Target the body of Ferreira, a guy who hasn't left the first round in the UFC, who normally doesn't leave the first round, whose cardio is super untested. Target the body. I trust Abus's cardio more. I know that he doesn't have the best cardio in the world, but I've seen him go a proper 3 rounds. I've seen him grapple for 3 rounds. I think that he could wrestle here. I think that it'll be difficult early, but I think it'll be easier later. So I think I'll have that. I think at range, he's going to have a lot of success because he just is so much bigger and he is a rangy striker. He uses it pretty well. So overall, I just think that he can outstrike Ferreira. I think he's going to have the better cardio. I think he's more tested. And I think that he could possibly have some grappling upside as the fight goes on. So I do like Magomedov here. I did play him at -140, and I got some reverse CLV. So maybe that's a good thing. What are you thinking here, Weezy?
So my big bet this week is Abus. 3-unit bet, -130. Look, Abus is winning rounds off of Caio Bahaio, and Sean Strickland. Bruno Ferreira is losing rounds off of Dustin Stoltzfus before he gets a Hail Mary spinning, elbow that was just absolutely spectacular. But, that kind of shit is very difficult to replicate. It's just flat out difficult to replicate. And if you watch that Stoltzfus fight, right, just before he lands that elbow, he's taking big breaths, Mike. Big breaths. I don't think this guy Ferreira's got any cardio, and I wouldn't expect him to. He's so explosive and so dangerous. You can't be both. You can't be this guy that can just truck dudes, that just punt heads into the cheap seats and simultaneously be going 15 full minutes at a high pace and winning minutes at the same time. It's not possible. So I think that Abus is just as dangerous, if not more dangerous, at distance striking range, even early in this fight. First of all, he's 4 inches taller. He's got a 6-inch reach advantage. His kicks are way better. And if he makes this dude wrestle early, there's not going to be any power left late in the fight. So, of course, Abus could get trucked early here, and it could be absolutely brutal. And I could be sitting there holding my 3-unit ticket just with tears in my eyes going, wow, that was not only a losing bet, but it was a spectacular loser, because that's what Bruno Ferreira can do to you. But, dude, if this fight gets out of the first round and Abus has won the first round, I'm going to be sitting back and I'm going to be kind of like, all right, this is where you sit back and you enjoy. Like when I had the Fluffy Hernandez ticket after round 1, and I was like, oh, it's already over, So, yeah, I think that Abus is going to beat this dude. I think he's more likely to even find a big shot early. And as the fight goes on, if he gets takedowns and top control like he did in the Warlley Alves fight, we're going to see that side more of Abus Magomedov here, I think, going forward in Abu Dhabi in front of the friendly crowd. I think even if this does go to decision, who gets the decision in Abu Dhabi, the Magomedov or the Ferreira? Easy question to answer. So I like Abus here. I figured I'd have to lay a lot more juice. And in this era where we're not seeing knockouts, and you got a guy who's completely and totally knockout dependent here in Bruno Ferreira, especially early in fights, I feel like it's a great spot to lay -130 for the guy who is just as good of a moment winner, in my opinion, but the way, way more trustworthy minute winner.
Yep, definitely agree with you there. I've seen a lot of people on Abus, so hopefully it's one of those public plays that works out for all of us, and it does make a lot of sense. But how crazy. Abus got 1 win, and they threw him into a main event against Strickland, trying to push him in there. And then Fluffy Hernandez is over here cooking guys, and he's not even ranked, barely ranked.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you one thing, man. I don't think Sean's going to be picking up the phone to fight Hernandez either. I don't think he'd like that fight one bit.
That's for sure. But all right, we can move on. Next up, I'm very, very curious on your take on this fight. We've got Myktybek Orolbai versus Mateusz Rebecki. Orolbai 13-3-1. Only recently discovered fire. 26 years old. He's 5'10" with a 74-inch reach. Rebecki on the other side, 19-2-0. 32. He's 6 years older, 3 inches shorter at 5'7", and he's given up, what is that? 8 inches in reach. So, Weezy, why don't you start us off?
That's a prick move to take a picture from Encyclopedia Britannica for Neanderthals there and put it for fucking Orolbai. That I'll tell you, man, that is absolutely savage there by our guy Couch Warrior. But actually, Orolbai does kind of look like that. But either way, Rebecki Orolbai is a great fight. I'm really looking forward to this one. I think that Mateusz wins round 1. I think round 2 is going to be greasy. I think round 3, which is going to be all Myktybek Orolbai. I think that this is a fight that's probably likely to finish inside the distance. I think that this is the kind of style I'm looking for to bet unders now, because Rebecki is an absolute bull. This guy is going to pressure right off the bat. He's going to get Myktybek on his back leg. He's going to be destroying that lead leg, and everything that he throws at your head is looking to take it off. So I don't think Orolbai's ever seen anybody like this. You know, Medic is a very dangerous striker, and Medic was absolutely having success at range in the Orolbai fight in round 1 before Myktybek got the takedowns. The Brenner fight, I thought, was a pretty solid look. You know, 29-27. He won all 3 rounds, had a point taken. Quick point take, if I remember correctly, but I don't it didn't really matter. He won the fight, but it wasn't like as dominant as you see most 30-27s. I mean, Elvis definitely gave him some problems. Rebecki is the kind of guy that you just have to try to survive round 1, because he's an absolute nightmare in round 1. He's built like a fire hydrant. He never stops coming forward, and he's gonna mix in the wrestling as well as try to take your head off or your calf off with everything that he throws. So yeah, man, Orolbai's gonna have to really kind of weather that early storm. I don't think he's taken down Rebecki in round 1. I don't think he's getting any takedowns. I think he's gonna be on the back foot. I think he's gonna be playing defense, and I think he's gonna be praying to wherever God you pray to when you're from Kyrgyzstan and from the year 3000 BC. So yeah, this is going to be a great fight, dude, because Rebecki cannot possibly fight at the pace that he sets. He sets such a furious pace. He just hopes he breaks you before the gas tank, you know, goes completely empty. Yeah, dude, and that's exactly right, Dogfather. I mean, he redlines, but god damn, when he's redlining, you better pray you fucking make it out of that alive, because he just brings it. So, yeah, this is one I think probably finishes inside the distance. So I think Orolbai maybe rounds 1 or 2 or 3 could finish the fight with ground and pound or a submission. And I think that Rebecki could get a submission or a knockout in round 1 or early in round 2. So I'm kind of liking an under here. And I'm going to see what those once those domestic books open up those props. I want to see what Rebecki round 1 looks like, because he could truck anybody in round 1, I think.
Yeah, I definitely agree there. For me, like, both these guys are really good, and I feel like this line is literally the definition of recency bias. Like, absolutely. Rebecki was what, -4 something against
-500 against Ferreira.
I remember literally hitting up our guy Dogfather and saying, dude, I want to bet Ferreira. He's like +375. And Dog goes, dude, he's washed. And I was like, you know what? You're right. He's washed. Yeah. And then I passed, and then that happened. And I was like, my God. But, you know, it happens. And that's also Carlos Ferreira. Like, the dude is a beast. And Orolbai's a beast too, but I wouldn't just assume that he's going to replicate it identically, like do the same thing, get him out of there. I feel like this line makes no sense. I'm likely, at this rate, I didn't think so, but I'm likely going to end up on a Rebecki play if we get, like, I mean, it's +260 already, so I don't even know how much more I can ask. But if I get +300, that's going to be a really easy click for me, because I just don't know where Orolbai is significantly better than Rebecki, that he's going to cover such a price tag. Is he that much of a better grappler? I don't think so. Is he that much of a better striker? He might not even be a better striker at all.
Yeah.
And then it just comes down to cardio. Okay, cardio, sure. But is that enough to make him -300 or more? I don't really think so. So for me, it's like, I'm pretty torn. I do think it's interesting that you said the under, because my gut reaction is the over. For me, normally when I get two guys like this who could strike, do have power, but are mostly grapplers, I tend to like overs, especially at plus money, because that's going to kill the clock if they're on the ground. And I don't think either of them is a tremendous submission threat. And I don't really see either of them getting kind of ground and pounded to TKO. So for me, I kind of lean the overs. That might be the way I play it, or I might do a small play on Rebecki. We'll see. I do lean Orolbai, younger guy. I think that I trust his cardio a bit more. So to make him a slight favorite makes sense. And he has looked really, really good, but he also hasn't fought anyone that great yet. Brenner is good. Brenner is a great fighter. That is a good win, but just hasn't fought anyone of this style. He hasn't fought anyone who's also a great grappler, who's really strong, really physical, powerful. So yeah, I'm pretty torn in this fight. Pick will be Orolbai, but I think it's a clear dog or pass, and I tend to like the over a little bit.
Yeah, dude, I got to correct you, though. He's not actually younger than Rebecki. They just unfroze him 27 years ago from, but I mean, like, he's like literally eons older than Mateusz Rebecki, but he got unfrozen like Encino Man. And now here he is running the streets of Vegas and getting into fights. So, it's actually the streets of Abu Dhabi this week, but yeah, man. And you know what's, I think, interesting? Oh, wow, dude. Orolbai and I got the same birthday, New Year's Day, stand up. I was born just a few years before him, of course, but yeah, he's a New Year's baby. I didn't realize that. And also, I think it's interesting that with Rebecki being minus 500 to Ferreira, now he's plus 250 about to Orolbai. And I think a great comp for Orolbai in this division is Loic Radzhabov. Right?
Yeah.
Similar type of fighter, I mean, like a good grappler with some power on the feet. I mean, Radzhabov's probably got more power than Orolbai does, but he's a guy who can win a ton of minutes with his wrestling. And I mean, Rebecki just kicked the shit out of Radzhabov.
Yeah. Maybe a little bit better cardio than Radzhabov. I'll give him that.
Yeah, that's true. But Radzhabov fights through being tired. He was dead in the third round of the Schulte fight, and he fought in the fourth, and he won the fifth round. So, and he was like dying with the flu that day and shit. So, like, Radzhabov is like he's a gutty dude.
Yeah, you had me in the first half there, Wheezy. When you were like, I gotta correct you, I was like, damn, what did I slip up on? But all right, we can move on. Next up, we've got Geoff Neal versus Raffael dos Anjos. Neal is 15-6-0, 34 years old, 5'11" with a 75-inch reach. RDA 32-16-0. He's going to be 40 years old now, 6 years older, going to be 3 inches shorter, and he's going to be at a 5-inch reach disadvantage. I'll start us off. I'll be completely honest. I still have to tape this fight. I haven't gotten to yet. Kind of left it for one of the last ones because I really don't have much interest, to be honest. I lean Neal. Younger guy, hits a lot harder, natural weight class for him. I think he's the better striker. I think his takedown defense should hold up. And I don't see a tremendous path for RDA, but again, I'd have to tape it. I need to go give a better look at the takedown defense of Neal. Because RDA, even at this age, he's still bringing it. He hurt Gamrot in that first round. I don't think he's completely gone yet, but I don't know where the chin's at. I don't know how much I trust him, so not really too tempted at the big dog odds either. What are you thinking, Wheezy?
Yeah, I think Geoff Neal should destroy him, honestly. Rafael dos Anjos just lost the fight to post-brain damage Vicente Luque. And who's the guy who gave the brain damage to Vicente Luque? Geoff Neal just absolutely beat the fuck out of Luque and absolutely ruined his career. If Vicente Luque would still be a top 10 killer if he had not taken that fight against Geoff Neal. So, I mean, 6 years younger, way more powerful. Guy's got historical 90% takedown defense and has been controlled less than 6% of his UFC cage time, which is more than 2 hours in the UFC octagon. So he's extremely difficult to take down. He's way more powerful. He's a southpaw. And I mean, I just don't know how Rafi's going to win minutes at distance striking range against a guy with a 5-inch reach advantage, a 3-inch height advantage, who's 6 years younger, faster, and more athletic. I think this is Geoff Neal all day.
What do you think about that under at plus money? I was kind of surprised about that.
Yeah, I mean, like the thing is you can knock out Dos Anjos, you cannot submit them, and that's the thing. Geoff Neal 9-1 to the KO, 4-0 to the KO in the UFC. You know, like there's guys like Rachmanov did not want to be at range with Geoff Neal. You know, this guy's going out there and winning minutes and knocking down Shavkat Rachmanov. You know, winning minutes against Santiago Ponzinibbio, just absolutely ruining the career of Vicente Luque. Split decision, razor close fight against Ian Gary. Ian Gary, at his level of striking, Mike, wanted nothing to do with Geoff Neal on the feet. Had to sell out for the grappling and was lucky to get those takedowns. The RDA's a 55er. It's going to be really difficult for him to grapple at 170 and grapple successfully against a guy with historical 90% takedown defense who's fighting guys like Shavkat Rachmanov, you know? So, yeah, it's Geoff Neal. It's Geoff Neal all day. I don't even think I'm going to tape this fight because I don't want to get ruined by what I know to be true at this point. And it's like if RDA wins this fight, I would be fucking shocked.
There you go. Honestly, I'd be pretty damn surprised too, but I will end up taping it at least a little bit. See what I can come up with. I just saw Neal knockout as like plus 250 or something, plus 210. That could be something.
Yeah, dude, Neal's always live to land a knockout. That dude has got heavy hands.
Yes, sir. But all right, moving on. We've got a more competitive fight for sure. We have Shara Magomedov versus Armen Petrosyan. Shara is 14-0, undefeated. He's 30 years old, 6'2" with a 73-inch reach. On the other side, Petrosyan, 8-3-0, 33. He's 3 years older, 1 inch taller, and he's at a 2-inch reach disadvantage. Why don't you start us off, Wheezy?
Yeah, I think this is a 50-50 fight. You really can't convince me that it's anything but a 50-50 fight. These are both pure kickboxers. I think Shara's a little bit more he's a little bit flashier, right? I mean, he's gonna be the one throwing axe kicks and the wild shit, the front leg stuff, while Petrosyan's more of a touch, you know, drowns you in volume, very accurate and very busy and very technical. So I really do think that Petrosyan is the side here because Shara's got a major hole in his game, you know. His takedown defense is crap. His get up game is not very good. He stays very busy off of his back, like landing short shots and, you know, like putting it in the judge's mind that he's doing more, even though his opponent is taking him down. He did a great job of that in the Bruno Silva fight. But yeah, I mean, I think that I think that this fight should be 50-50, but I also believe that we're going to see Petrosyan win some minutes with his wrestling, you know, because this is a guy who's had to train for Rodolfo Vieiro. He's had to train for Caio Bahayo. He's had to train for Gregory Rodriguez. And he's always been that pure kickboxer, but that's been an MMA fighter. And what happens when you fight guys like that is you're learning things in the gym that eventually you're going to find an opponent like Shara where now you can be the guy being like, you know what? I'm going to make this prick feel like Caio made me feel. You know, I want to make him thinking every time he thinks of throwing one of those garbage fucking attacks and I'm going to shoot in on a takedown. So I kind of feel like it's really hard to get to the Shara side. I don't want to lay juice on him. I'm not a fan of his grappling game at all. And I think that Armen's just as likely to win minutes at range as Shara is. So I feel like Shara is the side here. How do you feel?
You think Shara's the side or Armen?
I'm sorry, Armen. I feel Armen is the side at the price, especially because I think that this is a 50-50 fight, if not slightly favoring Armen.
Yeah, this was one of the first fights I taped because I felt like the line was kind of off, and I ended up agreeing with myself. I played Petrosyan a plus 160 for one unit.
Nice.
I don't really see how you make him plus 160 in a striking matchup. I remember when I got him against Chris Duncan at like plus 200. And what I also expected to be a striking fight, and everybody was giving me shit. The dude is an elite striker. He's a really good striker. His issue has been the ground game, but he's fighting a guy who has an even bigger problem with the ground game, in my opinion. I mean, what would Barallo do to Shara? What would Gregory Rodriguez do to Shara on the ground? They'd cook him. And Petrosyan has been training grappling. I believe he spent time out in Russia, particularly for the wrestling. Could be wrong there, but I'm pretty sure about that. And like you said, I would not be shocked at all if he went for some takedowns. I mean, who expected Bruno Silva to wrestle? That's also not something he does, and he did, and he got the takedown. So I wouldn't be shocked. I'm not really banking on it, but it does feel better knowing that might be in his pocket. But on top of that, I just think even on the feet, I think he's extremely competitive. I think in terms of the hands, I like his hands a lot more. The kicks are great from Shara and all, but a lot of them are missing. A lot of them are just like nice looking, but not super effective. I don't think he's knocking anyone out with those kicks here. And he's just not throwing enough with his hands. When he does throw his hands, he's very fast. He's very clean, technical, nice. But he's throwing a majority of kicks. And I just think Armin's going to be in his face, in and out. I think he's going to be landing more strikes. I think he's going to be throwing more strikes. And I just think he's going to outstrike Shara. And I know everybody's super high on Shara as a striker, but they're kind of forgetting about Petrosyan, in my opinion. So knowing that he can strike with this guy and knowing that grappling might be in his back pocket too, at plus 160, it wasn't a hard click for me to make. I really don't like Shara's minute winning. I really, really don't. And I was one of those people, I forgot who it was in the chat. I was one of those people who bet Cerqueira there. Small play. I mean, how could you not? How could you not?
Yeah, dude, because like you could be like, damn, dude, if he gets a takedown and gets this guy's back, he of course he could choke him out. So it wasn't the worst play. I mean, like it took him to the third round to finish that dude.
Yeah.
And that was short notice, and he had to fly like 15 hours to get there on fight week. So of course he gassed late.
Yeah. But yeah, for me, it's Armin. Real quick, catching up with the chat here. Tristan asking, anyone know if Saeed's getting a replacement? We do not know, but this is interesting. Signing Reyes Cortez. I don't know if you want to do that to Reyes. The guy needs a win already. 2 contender series performances, lost both. And then you're going to bring him to the UFC to lose to Saeed. I think he deserves it.
And it was who? It was Talbot and
C-Rod.
C-Rod. Man, he got a rough run.
Yeah, I don't know about giving him Saeed. I know Dogfather's been high on Shara this week. I think he's just waiting on the line. So he's got a little bit of a different take here. Shara game plan, circle the outside. Exactly. That's exactly what he does. And he's been out here taping movies too. So maybe he's a little distracted.
Yeah. Yeah, he's like a Bond villain, this guy. I think it's a perfect fucking career move for him.
Right. But all right, next up, we've got a really interesting fight. We've got Magomed Ankalaev versus Alexander Rakic. Ankalaev, 19-1-1, 32 years old. He's 6'3" with a 75-inch reach. On the other side, Rakic, 14-4-0, 32. He's the same age, 1 inch taller, and he's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage. I'll start us off here. I mean, in terms of a pick, I'll pick Ankalaev. I think that in the striking, it's close. I think it's a competitive fight in the striking. And I think Ankalaev will likely be able to get takedowns if he chooses to go for them. He definitely should, because Rakic could strike with him. Rakic might end up being the better striker. He is a little bit more technical, in my opinion, and has a few more tools. He uses the kicks more. So I think standing, I lean Rakic. I do think Ankalaev will get takedowns, though. So I think he's the rightful favorite, but I do feel like the line is really wide. I think a lot of the line is kind of predicated on people saying, like, oh, this dude should be champ right now. He's only not champ because they're not giving him the shot, blah, blah, blah. But it's all matchup dependent. And Rakic, at the end of the day, isn't an easy matchup for Ankalaev. So I'm going to stay away in terms of a money line. Don't really want to bet Rakic. Hard guy to trust. We all saw what happened in that Jiri fight. Even outside of that, sometimes he's very low output. He's very tentative. You don't really know which Rakic you're going to get. So even though he's a big dog and I think he's live, I'm not really interested. Definitely not interested in the heavy chalk on Ankalaev. For me, the only thing I'm kind of looking at is Fight Goes. I saw Bet Online has -145. That I'm kind of interested in. It's a little shaky betting a chalked up total in a light heavyweight fight, but both guys are pretty durable. Don't really see either guy finishing the other. Ankalaev likely will grapple. That'll kill some of the clock. So I lean towards Fight Goes if I'm going to make a play on this fight, but I might just pass altogether. How about you, Easy?
Yeah, I could never get to Ankalaev at -360 here. That's just way too wide for a guy that just does nothing. He's so low volume in the striking. He's low volume with his offensive wrestling. He's extremely precise, though. I mean, like, that's what you got to hand it to. Like, Ankalaev just doesn't do much, but when he does do something, it works, it lands, and he's definitely got some power too. But yeah, I think Rakic is a bad matchup for him. I'm not a fan of Ankalaev's process. I'm not really a fan of his fight IQ. You look at that Blachowicz fight, right? Like he won the 4th and 5th rounds, and I thought the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd rounds were fairly close. I thought you could have given him one of those rounds, but he lost that. If that's a 3-round fight, he loses that fight, and it takes him too long to get started. And guess what? Blachowicz is out there blasting his lead leg, and what does he do about it? Does he wrestle? No. Does he pressure and put Blachowicz on his back foot? Nope. Stands right in front of him, then switches stances, and then gets the other lead leg busted up. Almost got finished because of those leg kicks. I mean, I think Rakic's leg kicks are just as good, and maybe even better than Blachowicz's. So if this guy Ankalaev continues to be this lazy, low volume counter striker, I think that Rakic plus 3.5 points handicap at plus 125 that's available right now. That's going to be something I'm tracking. I'm just waiting to see if DraftKings, I mean, like, this is a pay-per-view card, and it's Tuesday night, and they have props out on 2 fights. That's disgraceful. You know, so I'm waiting to see where they open up that Rakic plus 3.5 points handicap, but I'm probably going to bet it at plus 125 on Bet Online. I think that Rakic can easily win the first round here. I think he's faster than Ankalaev. I think those leg kicks are going to be a big problem for Ankalaev. And let me tell you something, man. If he hits Ankalaev with the same shots that he was hitting Jiri with, now I know Jiri's a lot less defensively responsible, but Jiri's also got a chin for the ages. You know, I mean, like, unless you've got Alex Pereira level power, you're not knocking that dude out. So I think that Rakic is going to keep this fight really close. I'm actually picking Ankalaev by decision because I think that they're obviously very well matched on the feet, and Ankalaev's striking is excellent. And I do think that if Ankalaev chooses to fight smart for once and actually try to wrestle early in this fight, that he could win this fight by decision.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. I do want to mention, you know, Jiri only got knocked out by Pereira because of the black magic. All right, let's not forget.
Yeah, I know.
I
can't believe they let you use black magic in 2024. It's one of the best faces for MMA.
It's just not fair. It's not fair. They got to do something about it.
Yeah.
Let's see what we got. 6 Sound saying Rakic decision plus 650. That's interesting.
Yeah, 700 on Bet Rivers actually. And I was just saying, I was DMing with Brady. I was like, I might put a unit on Rakic plus 3.5 at plus 125 and a half unit on Rakic by decision at plus 700. That way, if he wins, then you're looking at like it would be a 4.75 unit win.
That would be nice.
He wins by decision, that is.
Yeah, that would be sweet. But I am gonna think about that fight goes. Because even with the 3.5 on Rakic, you know, you're kind of betting on him not getting finished. I guess you are still covered if he gets a finish, which is possible. I don't think it's super likely, but it's possible. You made a good point with the leg kicks. Those will probably be there unless Ankalaev has learned his lesson, but who knows with that guy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I lean Ankalaev and fight goes, but definitely a wide line. All right, we got another great. Honestly, this card is so good. As we're going through it, I'm like, damn. Even the prelims, like most of those fights could have been on the main card as well, and no one would have batted an eye.
Oh yeah, a couple of those are. I mean, like Orolbai and Rebecki is going to be a banger, you know. And I mean, obviously, Fat Barnett, a big fat dynamo, squaring off against the future champ of the heavyweight division, and Kennedy and Nzechukwu. That's you know, we got a bunch of main card fights on this one. It's beautiful.
Hell yeah. But all right. Here we've got Lerone Murphy versus Dan Ige. Murphy is 14-0 and 133 years old, 5'9" with a 73.5-inch reach. Ige 18-8-0. He's 33 as well. Going to be 2 inches shorter, and he's at a 2-inch reach disadvantage. Why don't you start us off, Wheezy?
Yeah, this is one I haven't finished researching yet, but the one thing that I do know is Dan Ige is one of the most durable guys on the face of the planet. So if you're on the Lerone Murphy side, I would encourage you to take the decision prop rather than betting the money line. It's going to be a way to save some money. You can wager less to win the same amount of money. and nobody's going to finish Dan Ige, not unless they let you bring a shovel in there. So, but Murphy has outstruck guys that Ige has not been able to outstrike. I mean, he's just so fast, so athletic. He switches stances. He's got just it's just beautiful to watch the man box. I mean, to do it to Edson Barbosa is just so impressive. The way that he just broke him down and looked like he was going to finish him in each of the last 3 rounds. I mean, he was just putting it on him. I think that this, and Ige, what's the Ige finish only prop? That's something that's always worth. I cashed on Ige's finish only prop the last time out. Nobody's ever finishing this dude. You'll just get your money back at worst. So it was a pick 'em earlier, and now it's actually moved to -130. So I think that's a safe play. -130, 1.3 units to win one. I think that's a good one. But I think Lerone Murphy probably wins this one by decision, and Lerone Murphy by decision is -140 compared to the money line at -260.
Yeah, makes sense to me. So I played Murphy, but I did play him earlier. I played him at -170 to win 1 unit, and I did go with the money line rather than the prop. First of all, because props weren't out yet. And second, I kind of figured it would be something like this where they priced it really close to his money line. Now that the lines really come in, I didn't really expect him to be -260. Oh, and I got COV, so you might as well fade me now while you got the chance. But overall, and I did want to mention the one thing, like with me now, I'm so hesitant to lay if a money line and a prop are similar in price. Like I'm going to really be careful there because I still remember when I bet Bilal Muhammad versus Sean Brady, and everyone was screaming at me, why would you ever bet Bilal money line and not Bilal decision? It's the only way he can win. Only way. And the difference, it was like Bilal money line was like minus, I don't know, it was like, or plus money. The difference was like 10 cents. And I was like, dude, I'm just going to play the money line. And then he gets a finish. So if it's a close line, like I assumed it would be when I played Murphy money line, I like to stick to the money line. But overall, it's a competitive fight. Ige is a tough dude. He's a tough out for anybody. He's very well-rounded. He's a great striker, a lot of power, solid takedown defense. But at the end of the day, I just think Murphy, he's got multiple ways to win. I think he can outstrike Ige. I think he can mix in takedowns. I think it would be smart for him to mix in the takedowns, give Ige something else to think about. I think Murphy's going to be better at range. Ige is a little bit of a shorter, stockier guy. He likes to trade in the pocket. That's where he's most successful. Murphy, he could stay at range, jab him up, 1-2s, clean down the pipe. I think his output is better. I think that, like I said, he's got the grappling upside. I think technically he's just a little bit cleaner. So for me, I do like Murphy here overall. I think if Ige wins, it will be a knockout. You can never put that past Ige. The dude can knock out anybody, I think. Hits like an absolute train. 50K is a very, very accurate nickname for him. But I do think Lerone Murphy's got the tools to win this fight, and I think he can make it look pretty dominant too. I've been so high on this guy since the beginning, Weezy. I've been backing him since day one in the UFC. The only time I didn't bet him was against Edson. I was a little hesitant there, big step up. If we're going to do MMA math, by the way, we don't really do that, but if we are going to do MMA math, Ige barely won that fight. Many felt he didn't even win against Barbosa, and Murphy cooked him. But there's some asterisks you could put there. Like, I think there was like a 3-year difference there. Barbosa's much older at this point when he fought Murphy. Yeah. It's one thing to consider. So, yeah. But MMA math aside, I do still like Murphy, and we can move on. Next up, we've got our co-main event, and my bias is going to kick in now, so Weezy's going to have to keep me in check. We've got Robert Whitaker versus Khamzat Chimaev. Whitaker is 26-7-0, 33 years old, 6 feet tall with a 73-inch reach. Chimaev 13-0, undefeated. He's 30. He's 3 years younger. He's going to be 2 inches taller, and he's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage. I'll start us off here real quick. Let me see what Dog is calling us a square for this time. Squares say stuff like that. Just play the money line and keep it simple, stupid. Okay, Dog, I'll keep it simple. Keep it simple.
Yeah, he was talking about your Bilal Muhammad bet where you bet him the money line and not the decision prop,
right.
And it's like, sometimes you see these things like Derek Lewis, minus 200 by knockout, minus 205 on the money line. And it's like, dude, just take the fucking money line, you know? What are you?
It's MMA. You never know.
You never know, dude. Yeah.
I just got into MMA. Is this Lucas Tracy? So I know who Lucas Tracy is. Neither of us really look like him, so I'm not really sure what the joke is. But maybe he can explain that one. But all right, I'll start us off. So, like I said, I'm biased. It's the same reason I didn't bet Whitaker in the Ikram Aliskerov fight. I was like, I think Whitaker's going to win. I thought he would take over the fight as the fight goes on. I didn't think he'd knock him out early, but I stayed away. That bit me in the butt, but we'll see what I do here. Look, the way I see it, Chimaev is just different. I don't know anybody else on this earth who could have done what he did to Kamaru Usman in that first round. I remember sitting with my friends watching that fight because I think that was also an Abu Dhabi card, right? Was that like exactly a year ago? Yeah. I know because my birthday is on the 30th, and the week before is literally always an Abu Dhabi card. And I remember watching with my friends. So it was literally a year ago. I remember the first round, and he's on top of Usman. He's got the hooks in, and we're just all looking at each other like, what the hell? Kamaru Usman at that point, I don't even know if he had been taken down yet. He did by Edwards, but that was it. He was known for his takedown defense. And Chimaev just comes out there, grounds him, just takes his back. It was crazy. And even in the second round, he looked great. But there's the issue is the cardio has always been a concern. He does slow down. He does get very sloppy. He's been incredibly inactive, fights very, very rarely, like once a year. And you just have no idea what's going on with him outside of the cage too, because he's constantly getting sick or some kind of injury and pulling out. So you just don't know what you're getting. So, like, can he finish Whitaker? Absolutely. I think a lot of people are looking at the DDP fight with Whitaker, put some pressure on him, mix in some takedowns. You could beat this guy. And Chimaev clearly has all the tools, but I don't know how you can trust him at chalk. Because if Khamzat doesn't get him out of there in the first or second, you're going to be sitting there with your Chimaev ticket, and you're going to be stressed out. Because the cardio, you have no reason to believe that his cardio will hold up a third maybe. Because he's done it. He had a war with Gilbert. But a fourth and a fifth round, I don't know. There's nothing on the tape for me to suggest to me that he will be okay in the fourth and fifth. I think he's going to struggle. Whitaker, great cardio, 5-round experience, got plenty of it. Fantastic striker. I think he's the cleaner striker of the two of them. Good in and out movement. I think he's better defensively. And he's a great wrestler in his own right with great takedown defense. Now, again, Usman was also a great wrestler with great takedown defense, and that meant nothing against Chimaev early. So early on, I do think Chimaev will take down Robert. I do think Chimaev can knock him out. Whitaker's chin has been touched multiple times at this point. He's not the most durable fighter out there. So Chimaev can definitely get him out there early. But if he doesn't, I do think that Bobby will be very live. I think maybe this is a great live betting opportunity. Just wait it out. Don't bet anything pre. Let Khamzat do his thing in the first round. And then if Khamzat doesn't get him out of there in the first, you're probably getting an even better line on Robert. And then you can hop in. But I don't know, pre-flop, the line might blow out too, because a lot of people are on Khamzat. The parlays haven't even gotten started yet. I always say, like, my brother's big into MMA, but he's a much more casual fan. Once he starts calling me and asking me, like, hey, should I parlay Chimaev? That's usually when I go, and if I like the dog, that's usually when I hop on the dog, because that's when I know all the parlay money's coming in. So maybe if Bobby hits like plus 300 pre-flop, then maybe I'd play him, because there's a chance he defends well in the first round and you don't get a better entry. I don't think it's a super high chance. I think Chimaev is going to come out like a bat out of hell trying to get Bobby out of there, and he very well might. So we'll see. For now, I'm going to pass. I think unders make a little bit of sense, but I feel like if Chimaev's getting finished, it's going to be later, so I'm not crazy about that. I think Bobby late props might make some sense. I saw FanDuel has a 3-4-5 knockout, but it's plus 800. Kind of thought it would be better than that. Seems like the books are onto it. So I don't really see a major way to play this. Even for a pick, I don't know who to pick. You know what? I'm going to be biased. I'm going to pick Robert Whitaker. Just a pick. How about
It's
you,
your
Weezy?
show, man. You can be biased.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, so like this is one I feel like is a really great one to stay away from, because we really don't know what we're getting with Hamzat right now. This guy, was a guy who was fighting twice in 10 days and just dick sawing everybody. And then all of a sudden, he can't even make it to the cage anymore. COVID's beating him. And a guy like Whitaker, who's been fighting pretty much mostly 5-round fights for a very long time now, against a guy who literally is like having health problems in his 20s. That's a scary thing. When you're young and you're a professional athlete, you shouldn't be having health problems. And like if you're
Remember when he retired?
Yeah. This guy's retired. He showed up 10 pounds heavy for a fight and got named the Gourmet Chechen. He's as talented as it comes, though. I think a lot of people hate Hamzat, and there's not a lot to like. But when it comes to this guy's in-cage performances, he's one of the best that's ever done it. So it's really hard to back anybody against him because you're like, man, if Hamzat goes in there and looks like Hamzat, he's going to finish Whitaker in the first or second round. And if he doesn't, like I'm looking at the round 1-2 line on Bet Rivers is plus 150 for Hamzat, plus 150 compared to minus 265. This is a guy who's been too sick to train a lot of the time. He's had to pull out of several fights because of health problems. So I feel like the best way to play Hamzat is not to be like, oh, let's hope he can put together 5 solid rounds and win a decision. No, let's pick him to do what he does, which is go in there and completely dominate, hold his opponent to one significant strike over 8.5 minutes where he just takes him down, gets the back mount and just mauls the dude. And I think that's what he's going to do here. Did you see that clip of him just like picking up Cormier?
Yeah.
Did you see, dude, Cormier is $3 bills if he's a pound right now. There's no fucking way that dude doesn't. He's got his own orbit. If he, like, I don't know who his tailor is, but he's working hard because that dude is got about like a 60-inch waist, and he just like reached down with a high crotch and just picked Cormier up over his head like it was nothing. It was pretty crazy to watch. I mean, he is a phenomenal wrestler. Absolutely. He's like a savant. You look at it, like some guys like, they can be dumb at everything, but then there's one thing that they do where you're like, oh my God, like that's God tier. He's the guy can't wipe his own ass, but like you put that math problem in front of him and he's going to get it right every time. And Hamzat's like that when he just walks into that cage. He was built to do this.
Yeah. Talk about aura. I used to hate that word, but remember when he was fighting? Who was it? Burns. When Burns is walking out and they pan the camera, and Hamzat is just sitting on top of the cage, kicking his feet, and Till is just standing next to it. That's one of my favorite pictures of all time. That was so sick.
Yeah, like that look that he gets on his face before the fight's about to start, and I mean, like he's already. I mean, he's hard to look at. He's a scary looking dude, and you just look at him and he's like Keith Jardine. You remember him? Like he's like this science experiment that's standing across the cage from you, and he's like tweaking his own nipple, smiling at you before the fight starts. And you're like, oh man, this is gonna be rough. Like it's the same shit when you look at this guy. Only this guy's way fucking better than Keith Jardine ever was. So yeah, man. I think Hamzat's gonna go out there and finish him in round 1 or 2. But if it gets past that, I don't have any faith in his cardio. I don't have any faith in his ability to go 25 minutes right now. But he could surprise us once again. When this guy's ready to go, there's nobody that's beating him.
Yeah, at the end of the day, like real talk, if he does pace himself, he's probably going to be fine. Because in all those fights where he gassed, like in the Usman fight, he went real hard in that first round, chasing that finish. And I mean, he got pretty close. And in the Gilbert Burns fight, that was an absolute war, and he held up there. So, yeah, I can understand it. Realistically, I am picking Chimaev. I was mostly joking, but Yeah, it's a really interesting fight, and I think the best decision for me, at least, is probably going to be to just watch as a fan, and we can move on. Talk about watching as a fan. All right. Next up, we've got Ilia Topuria versus Max Holloway. Topuria is 15-0, undefeated. He's 27 years old, 5'7" with the 69-inch reach. Holloway is going to be 26-7-0. He's 32. He's 5 years older. Going to be 4 inches taller, and they're going to have the same reach. Why don't you start us off for the main event, Wheezy?
Yeah, main event. This is amazing. Ilia Topuria is one of these guys that, like when he beat Volkanovski, I remember I was telling Brady on Stat Diggers the other night. You know, I was like, I remember when he was walking out to the cage, John Anik is saying that, yeah, Ilia Topuria is saying he's going to knock out Alexander Volkanovski in the first round. And I remember I'm sitting there watching the fight. I was with my brother on his birthday in Indianapolis with a bunch of other people. I was like, this guy is out of his fucking mind if he thinks he's going to knock out Volk, you know, and he didn't do it in the first, but he sure as hell did it in the second, you know, and I was just like, you got to be kidding me, man. 15-0, you know, 7-0 in the UFC, 8 wins by submission, 5 wins by knockout, 2 by decision. When this guy first came into the UFC, you were talking about his grappling. Now, this guy's got some of the scariest power that the featherweight division has ever seen. You know, like he's like deading dudes like Jeremy Stevens used to back in the day. He's got nuclear power in his hands. And now, because of that, people forget what a lockdown, phenomenal grappler Ilia Topuria is. So, you know, for him to go out there and do what he did to, I'm not going to Volkanovski, I'm not going to say, oh, we got lucky or, you know, any of that shit. Until this guy loses, I'm on Team Topuria. I have to go with him. You know, I think that he can win minutes in the wrestling and grappling here against Max. It won't be easy, and he'll have to pick his spots because in 5-round fights, when you have as bad of a weight cut as Topuria has in order to get down to 145, you know, that's why he's already talking about going up to 155 and 170, you know, because this guy is just like Conor. He doesn't want to make that cut down to 145 anymore.
I laughed so hard when I heard 170, though. Can you imagine this guy in Shavkat?
Yeah, dude, 6'2" Shavkat. Yeah, like put him in there against, even just put him in there against Jalen Turner at 155 and be like, how do you like this? You know, still want to move up to 170, you know? So, yeah, I love this fight. This is so great because it's one of those questions where it's like, so how nuclear is Ilia Topuria's power? Is he going to knock out a guy who cannot be knocked out? A guy who's never even been credited as having a knockdown against in the UFC? You know, this is going to be such a great fight because, you know, this is going to be the test where if Topuria can't get him out of there, can he win minutes over a 25-minute stretch against somebody that is as great at winning minutes as Max Holloway is, the guy who's going to be 4 inches taller, just a much longer dude, the better range manager. He's the one throwing the straight punches while Topuria is just, you know, winging those hooks, looking to kill you. You know, Max is so much more technical. He's got that big cage to move around in. And he's the kind of guy that the one guy where you're like, who's the guy at featherweight who could absorb this dude's power? The answer to that question, it always has been and always will be Max Holloway until somebody ends it. And Max is almost 33 years old, but he's got 33 professional fights. You know, he's got 530 minutes of professional cage time, 25 fights at the UFC level since the year 2013, most of them scheduled for 5 rounds. This is such a great test for Ilia Topuria. And I love that Max is durable because we're going to get some questions answered, I believe. And those questions are going to be, what does Topuria look like in rounds 4 and 5? Can you throw 100% power into all the strikes that you throw and still look good in the championship rounds against somebody like Holloway who's not going to slow down and is going to continue putting a pace on you? So, you know, this is probably one of those fights that I'll be happy to have no money on and just have the questions answered for me.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, yeah, so for me, like I told you guys, Clearly very biased, but I am also a really big Topuria fan, and I always have been. The more he talks, I like him a little bit less. I feel like he tries a little bit too hard sometimes. I feel like if he just let his performances speak for him, that would be better. But I've been a fan of his since day one. I remember when he made his short notice debut against Zalal, and I think I bet him there at like Pick'em against Zalal, which is insane to think about now. And since then, I was backing him every single fight. I don't think I bet him against Volk. I actually might have even been on Volk because I felt like it was a big step up, such a close line. And he pulled up and he did almost exactly what he said he was going to do. He said he'd knock him out in round one. He got him out of there in what, the second round?
Yep.
So for me, it's interesting. I like that you brought up the grappling because it's almost like everybody forgot. Everybody just sees the striking at Topuria, and it's almost like they're acting like he's this boxer. But he came into the UFC. What got him to the dance was his grappling. He's a really, really good grappler. He's a good wrestler, and he's got great jiu-jitsu, and it's very underrated because he hasn't been using it lately just because he hasn't really needed to. I mean, he came out there against Josh Emmett, who hits like a tank, and just butchered him over 25 minutes, completely cooked him. And the striking looked amazing. I love how he goes to the body and then upstairs, and he does it so fast that you just don't see it coming. And that's how he's knocking a lot of these guys out. I mean, Damon Jackson, body shot upstairs. Jai Herbert, same thing. And it's just so clean. But at the same time, if this fight does go 25, do I think he outstrikes Max? I don't know. Like, I don't really think so. I feel like Max, he's going to throw a lot more. His output is really, really high. And he's also a really technical, really clean striker. And he's also very fast with the hands. So over 25 minutes, I think it'll be really, really close with Topuria landing the bigger shots and Max maybe landing more. But I think what people are sleeping on is the grappling. Is that out of the two of them, the one who could go to takedowns when he's not comfortable on the feet, it's Topuria. He's going to be able to take down Max, I think. I think Max does have really good takedown defense, but it also hasn't really been tested much lately. He hasn't really fought a great grappler recently, and he hasn't really fought anyone who's pushed it on him. And Topuria might not. If he doesn't, that'll be a bad game plan, in my opinion. Maybe if he's fighting with his ego. But if he mixes in the grappling, I do think Topuria has what it takes to beat Max. I'm not going to lay the chalk on Topuria because I still have questions, and I do think Max is still a beast and can outstrike Ilia. So because of that, I don't want to lay the chalk. If the line does get really wide, like another plus 300 situation, I would put a half unit on Max, and I wouldn't feel too bad about it. But what I did play the over 4.5 at plus 110, and I put 2 units on it. I know that everyone is loving the Topuria ITD here, and they're saying Max's chin is eventually going to go. And you know what? I agree. Eventually that chin will go. He's taken a ton of damage. I get it. But until that happens, if you're going to give me that over at plus money, like I'm going to take it because I don't think Max is knocking out Ilia. And like I said, until I see Max go down, I'm not going to believe it. If the over was chalk, we'd be having a different conversation. Yeah. But at plus 110, I felt like that was a good bet. So I put 2 units on it. My only major concern really isn't the knockout. It's that Topuria might sub him because people, again, they're not really thinking about it, but Topuria's a really good grappler. And I wouldn't be shocked at all if he was striking with Max, and all of a sudden he dives in for a double, takes him down, and is able to sneak something in there. That I'm more concerned about that than a knockout because I do think Holloway is also pretty good defensively standing. So yeah, that's my only concern with that over, but I figured let me play the over rather than picking a side and being biased because I think Max is durable, bias aside, and I think Ilia is durable, clearly. So for me, that was the play, and I'm pretty happy with it.
Yeah, let me tell you something about Ilia Topuria that I find to be really a great reason to back him is that, you know, this sport is crazy. I know you wrestled. I wrestled a little bit. I did judo. You know, being underneath those lights and having one person on the other side of you, and it's, you know, after that's over that, you know, it's going to be very clear who won. You know, you have to be so confident. You have to be so mentally strong to do this at a high level. That kind of stuff is often very underrated when we cap fights. Is how comfortable is this person in the cage? How comfortable or how confident are they in their own skill set? So it's one thing before a fight to go out there and say, yeah, Volkanovski, everyone says he's the greatest of all time. I don't give a shit. I'm going to knock him out in the first round, right? Because everybody says that kind of shit. You remember when Stipe won the title against Verdum? He knocked him out, and then like he put his hands on his head, and he was like looking at the camera. He goes, "I'm the champ. I'm the champ." You know, Topuria knocked out the greatest featherweight of all time in Volkanovski, and he looked like he was waiting in line at the DMV. I don't even know if he really cracked a smile, and that was what really impressed me. Was when I was listening to him in the post-fight interview, I was like, holy shit, he's not surprised at all. He's not overwhelmed. He's not like, holy shit, I've been dreaming about this since I'm the fucking champ. You know, like there's all this, you know, that sense of relief that comes when you achieve the biggest thing that you're going to achieve in your life, and it happens in front of your eyes. Some people, they can't believe it happened. People like Ilia Topuria, he's known it's going to happen. He's still undefeated. He has the confidence of an undefeated fighter. In his mind, he's undefeated. In his mind, he's beating the shit out of Dricus du Plessis, Jamal Hill, Yuri, Ferreira, whoever the fucking heavyweight champion is after John Jones. He in his mind, he's beating all of them. And in his mind, he's going to go out there and kick the shit out of Max Holloway. And until somebody puts that turns that 0 to the right of the 15 to a 1, this guy is never going to stop believing in himself. And he's going to go out there and probably beat everybody that they put in front of him, because his mind is probably the strongest thing about him. And that's scary because he's got power. He's got stamina. He's got phenomenal grappling and a really well-rounded skill set.
Yeah. People kind of hate on him because he's so cocky, but to get to this point, to become a champion, like you have to have a certain level of delusion. Like you have to firmly believe you are the best to get there, even if it's not true. Like you have to believe it. And he's only he's not even 28, which is just insane. I know. But it's very similar to Max. You know, he's also champ when he was very young. So such a good matchup, man. I do want to bring up one comment. Someone said, "How do you know Ilia is durable?" Where is it? Right here. How do we know he's... Dude, he fought Josh Emmett for 25 minutes.
Yeah, Josh Emmett's got that.
That's how I know.
Yeah.
Josh Emmett is one of the hardest hitters in the division, if not the hardest. And he didn't even get close to hurting Ilia. I know
he's in there against the power of Ryan Hall. That guy can put you out.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Bryce Mitchell. Yeah, but I mean, Herbert's got a ton of power. Josh Emmett's got a ton of power. And Volkanovski's one of the greatest minute-winning strikers in the division. I mean, he's just, this guy Topuria is incredible.
Yeah, and Champ saying he didn't get hit much. Yeah, but that's also because he has great defense, which is another reason I would like that over then, you know.
66% distance striking defense over a 48-minute sample size at distance. I love my distance striking stats. Such a powerful tool for capping those distance striking numbers that get obfuscated when you just look at the significant striking numbers. The difference in accuracy between ground strikes and clinch strikes compared to distance strikes, it skews everything, and it makes those significant strike numbers almost useless. You need to split them into control time stats and distance striking stats. And 66% distance striking defense is 6.3% better than the divisional average. So that's one thing that dominant fighters do very well. They're always defensively sound.
Yep. So at the end of the day, for me, I will pick Topuria as much as it hurts me. But my bet in the fight is that over that I told you guys about. And that's it. That's UFC 308, guys. That is 13 fights. Maybe we'll get a 14th, but if we don't, it's A-okay because this is a phenomenal card. Should be a lot of fun. And us in America are getting it nice and early too. I'm literally going to wake up and probably wake up right in time for the fights because I don't wake up early on the weekends. But all right. So before we hop out, Weezy, if you want to plug anything, thank you so much for coming on, man. It's always a pleasure. Love breaking down fights with you. And let the people know what you got going on.
Yeah, tomorrow I'm doing a bunch of content for my Patreon people. Probably going to go live for about 2.5 hours to do balls deep breakdowns and read these, fight write-ups that I sent you on the Twitter. I've kind of changed my process for how I break down fights, and I want to do every fight the exact same way and take all that information into account for every single fight, so that I'm seeing the trends a little bit closer. That I'm understanding where there really is value and where there's value and where there's value losers, because just because somebody that's plus 400, you think they're going to look plus 250. If they look plus 250 in there, you're not cashing the bet because they lost, so it's like I think when this new methodology that I'm breaking down fights, it's definitely having an effect. I've been first place on Tapology, and actually top twice on Tapology, first place in the last 3 months. Once also in the top 20. A 9.5 unit win 2 weeks ago, 3.5 unit win last week. The trend is definitely up. So I'm plugging my Patreon, and I'm going to put a special out there this week for UFC 308 and let people, instead of paying $25 a month, pay $3.08 to get access to the Discord, all my track bets, all the fight write-ups, all the matchup stats, all the individual fighter stats, prize picks data, FanDuel data, DraftKings data, underdog data, and all my proprietary betting models that actually calculate savings for the bets for every over-under bet and prop bet that's available. So check out the Patreon. Follow me on Twitter, and I'll be putting out that special either later on tonight or tomorrow, so that people can access the over 4 exclusive hours of content that I give my Patreon people and my Dub Club people every single week. So thanks for having me on, Mike. Let's stack cash tickets like flapjacks for this event.
Oh yeah.
I'm looking to go balls deep on this one and get a lot of units on the line here. And I think these are some phenomenal fights.
Hell yeah. A lot of good spots. Make sure you guys are checking out Wheezy's stuff. If you, for some reason, didn't know Wheezy before this show, literally probably the best stats guy in the space. You got all these people selling you picks for like $400 a month, and Wheezy will give you picks, stats, all that good stuff for much less. So definitely check him out. And yeah, for me, guys, I have my shorts coming out tomorrow. So if you don't like these long form videos, you just want to hear a quick breakdown, I do 1-minute shorts for every single fight on the card. Those will come out tomorrow. And on Thursday, the panel returns. I don't know where Tyler went over there in the comments, but he's somewhere. 138 MMA, my co-host for the panel. We'll be going live on Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern time here on my channel. And we'll be joined by 2 other great guests. We got Lucrative and Jewish Better coming on. They're a little bit of a duo themselves. They had their parlay show going on. So that should be fun. A few different takes going on there. Make sure you tune in and check it out. We got 100 live viewers right now. Thank you to all of you watching and tuning in. And good luck this weekend, guys, and peace out.